Good evening, everyone. I am Shreya Bhatia, and I am your presenter for your presentation for Principles of MVC for Rails Development. Um, I'm basically an ROR developer. I have 8+ years of experience in the IT industry, and since the last 6 years, I've been involved with ROR. Guys, please do let me know if you can hear me and see my screen. Please let me know via the questions window so I can proceed. Guys, please let me know via questions window that you can see my screen and hear me. All right. So let's begin. What I'm assuming is that you guys have basic programming experience, and you know a bit about Rails. You guys know enough to start with what is MVC. All right. So by the end of this module, we will be able to understand the challenges faced when designing an application without a framework, the MVC design pattern, the logic behind MVC, the dry convention, which stands for do not repeat yourself, and also convention over configuration. We will see the MVC benefits, and we will have a live demo of MVC in Rails. So I'm hoping by the end of the session you guys will be able to completely do MVC yourself. So what are the challenges while designing an application without a framework? Let us say we are developing a web app and an e-commerce app. It will contain a lot of logic. There will be a lot of redirecting, a lot of code will be there. So there is complexity, unless and until you manage it in a proper fashion, you will be dealing with a lot of complex code and actually a lot of code in itself. And it will be, unless you manage it in some fashion, it will be difficult to reuse. Something that you've written once, you should be able to reuse it again rather than, writing it again. Moreover, if you write something, more than one time, and you change something, at one of the places, you might actually forget to change it in the other place that you've written the same logic. So it is best that whenever you are, there's something that has to be repeated, it is in one place, and both wherever it needs to be repeated calls that function or method, whatever you have defined, and reuses it. So it is essential to reuse the code. It is very difficult without a design principle to reuse it, and you will have to hard code everything from the start. Moreover, if number of people are working parallelly, programming parallelly, you there will be conflicts in, let us say two people have are working on the same file, and one has a different version, another has a different one. So how will you reconcile that? So some kind of design principle is required to manage a code. Other than that, everything must be tested as well before it goes live. So such huge code without reusability, people working in different environments, and having a test for everything, it is really, really necessary that we have a design framework. All right. So what are the challenges faced while designing an application without a framework? As we talked, it leads to disorganization. And moreover, if there is no structure around the code, and if the code grows huge in size, you change one thing and it will disturb another. So you need a lot of testing, you need a lot of structure in your application, so that all of your code and its complexity can be managed. So the solution to this is use design pattern, and one such design pattern is MVC. MVC stands for Model View Controller. We'll shortly know what is the meaning of Model View Controller separately. Meanwhile, MVC, as I said, is a design pattern. It is a way to organize a program in a proper manner. By program, we mean an application. All right. So what is MVC? As I said, it is an acronym for Model View Controller, a software design pattern for developing web and desktop applications, more so web applications. In simple words, it is a way of separating the logic of your application from the display. You'll see how it happens. Originally described in terms of design pattern for use with Smalltalk, and by a guy called Trygiv Rensog in 97. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correct. His paper was published under the title Application Programming in Smalltalk, How to Use MVC, and that was just the beginning, and it paved way for future implementations. So what it does is it separates out your application's business logic, your rules, your semantics, rules. For example, let us say you're filling out a form, and let us say your user is registering itself. The user will not be able to register without an email. So that is a rule. Now, what MVC does is it separates such rules and your presentation logic. So, for example, you might want to add some CSS on a page, some JavaScript to make the UI friendly, user friendly, and of course CSS for the look and feel of your application. So these two things are completely separated; they do not intermix. And by the virtue of this, our code is more reusable. It is more structured. Different people can work on it. It is maintainable. You can test it very easily. So that is the basic premise of MVC. So your model in your MVC will represent your data layer. Your view represents your user interface layer. Here you will, in your model, you will specify all your rules and business logic of your application. Your view is the user interface layer. Here you will specify all the CSS and the JavaScript, the look and feel of your application. And a controller is like a bridge between a model and a view. We'll see how it is like that. So this is a illustration. So what happens is, let us say you are an end user and you send a request to mywebsite.com. Your browser will receive the request and it will in turn send a HTTP request to a controller. The controller will see, okay, this is my request. Now, let us say the user wanted to see the list of all users, or let us say all articles. So what the controller will do is it will see that, oh, I want to fetch all the articles. It will request the model to fetch all the articles. Now your model will in turn send a request to your database, and it will fetch all the articles. Once your articles has been fetched, they will be returned to model, which in turn will return all your articles to the controller. Now controller will store them in a variable and pass it on to the view. Now this view will simply display all these articles, add some CSS to it, some JavaScript, some images if required, and return it back to the controller. Now controller will wrap it in the response and send it back to the browser. Now what your browser has received in HTML, which it will display to the end user. So that is the cycle. So in between this controller and your web browser, there are two things. One is your web server. So your browser cannot directly interact with your controller. It will send a request to your web server. A web server can be something like a Mongrel, Apache, Thin, Webbrick. Webbrick is the default server for Rails, by the way, which we often use in development mode. Not suitable for production, but default and good for development. So so the first thing that happens is your web server intercepts your request. And now your web server sends it to a routes file. We'll see all this in very shortly, but just to give an explanation. It will send your request to your route, to your Ruby on Rails routes. Once that is done, your routes will decide to see, which controller do I send the request to. And it will select an appropriate controller. So for example, if the request is to fetch all the comments, it will select a comments controller. If the request is to fetch all the articles, the request will be sent to the articles controller, like that, so on and so forth. All right. So that this is about that about your this diagram. All right. So a model. What is a model? Data accesses, routines, and some business logic can be defined in the model. Your model is responsible for providing the data from the database and saving the data into the data store. So any interaction that has to be done with the database is done by the model, be it saving the data, retrieving the data, updating the data, or deleting the data. So a few things that a model does. It puts your checks and validations on your data. Like for example, which field will accept a numeric value, or let us say if it is an email field, what format will be acceptable. So these kind of checks and constraints. So 3-4 things: your checks and constraints, fetch, retrieve, delete, update data, and any other kind of business logic that is there in your application will also be handled by the model. So models are active representation of database tables. They can connect to your database, query it if instructed so by the controller. So the controller is like, it is actually what is controlling the request, and what is the life cycle of it, where it goes, what data to fetch, and save the data to the database. There is no direct interaction between the model and the view. All that logic is handled by the controller. All right. Views define exactly what is presented to the user, as I told you. It collects data from the user and gives it to the controller. Controller invokes the required model. The controller passes the data to each view to render it in some format. Views can be described as template files that present their content to the user. So whatever data the model has fetched, it is given it to the controller. Controller will put it in some kind of a variable and pass it on to the view. So variable arrays and objects that are used in view are registered to the controller. A view should not contain complex business logic. Only elementary control structures should be necessary to perform some particular operations. For example, let us say there is a date and you want to display the date in a particular format. So that kind of logic can go in your view. The different format styles, or let us say you are converting a dollar value into a rupee value. That those small logics can go into the view. However, bigger logics should be in model, preferably, and if they are not in the model, max to max they can be in the controller. So no hard code complex business logic should be there in your view. All right. So controller. As I told you, the controller binds the whole pattern together. A request is received by the controller. It invokes the model, which in turn fetches the data. The data is returned back to the controller. The controller then passes it on to the view. View renders it and then returns back to the controller. The controller will again return the response. So the whole controlling of life cycle or the flow of your request is done by the controller. Controller is intermediary between model and view. Your controller contains the logic of your application. Each controller can offer different functionality. So as I told you, let us say my URL was mywebsite.com/users, and so all the actions pertaining to the user will be there in the user's controller. And let us say my URL is, or I've requested for all the articles, mywebsite.com/articles. All the logic pertaining to the articles, fetching it, deleting it, etc., will be in the articles controller. And this thing of which controller to invoke based on the request is done by your router. We'll be seeing router in a short while. So once a request is received from the client, it executes appropriate business logic from the model, decide which view to display based on user's request and other factors, pass along the data that each view will need, and or hand off the control to another controller entirely. So it will decide what to do with it, which view to render. So there might be two views for, let us say there is a listing of users, and there are two kind of views. One which lists all the users, and one which lists the paginated way. So, whether to show the pagination view or the normal view is, will probably depend on some parameters, and this decision, which view to render, is taken by the controller. Now I'll make a directory for MVC. We'll do a cd MVC. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll create a new Rails app, and what it will do is it will be a a project management kind of a thing, wherein a project can have various tickets, and a ticket can be assigned to a particular person to do. That is what we'll do for now. We'll probably see if you want to add more functionality to it, but this is the basic of what we'll try to do. This bundle will take some time. So what it does is it installs the gems that are required in a Rails app, the basic gems. So I'll just wait for it to complete. So I have a question from Ajay Sharma, and he's asking, will Rails automatically create the directory structure? Yes. So your Rails new application, the command that I ran, Rails space new space application, will create a Rails project for you, and it will instantiate a blank application. All your directory structure will be available in that application. So yes, it automatically creates all the directory structure for you. We'll switch to this. We'll cd into this folder. So tickety, it's a blank Rails application. So we had MVC here. We have tickety here. So what it has done is it has given you a basic directory structure. Now the main folder that we'll be dealing with is the app folder. It will contain 90% of our code. So these are the models. They are empty as of now. There are no models as of now. These are your views. Views will live here, and this is your controller folder. Our controllers will live here. By default, Rails has an application controller, and any further controller will be derived from this controller. So let's just run this app. Rails S command will run your app, and it will be available on localhost 3000. Rails S is short for Rails server. So this is the default Rails page that we see. This is the default welcome page. If you can see this page, that means your application is up and running. So let's just create our first model. I'm killing the server. You can kill the server using Control-C. Okay. So how do I generate a model in Rails? So you do a Rails G model, and let us say my model is called project, and I want to have a field called name. So this is the syntax for it: Rails G model project, and after that any fields that you want to specify. So this name will be by default a string field. If you want any other field, any other data type, we can specify it like this. But if it is a string field, I don't need to specify anything. So this will create a model. Rails is best, tried and fiddled with on Linux machines. As you can see, this is pretty slow. So what it has done is Let's see our models now. It has created a project model, if you see. So our active record base is the ORM. All your models inherit from active record base. So what this does is it maps your class to your database table. So the table will be called projects, and this class project is mapped to it. All the rows will be available as instances of this class, and all the columns will be the fields. So let us see. So what this command will do is it will create a model, and it will also create a migration. So our migrations live in your db migrate folder. So let's see what is a migration. Now, so it has created this migration. So what it is telling Rails is to create a table called projects and have a string field in it called name. And what timestamps does is it adds two fields called created at and updated at, which will be automatically updated. We don't need to handle them. So anytime a record is created, the created at will be populated with the current date and time. Anytime a record is updated, your updated at will be updated with the current date and time. So this command is generated two things: project class and your migration. So we will need to run the migration for the changes to take place. So the command to do it is rakedb migrate. So it has migrated our table, and our table is in place now. So let us first also create a controller for this. How do we create a controller? We do a Rails G controller, and the name of the controller. The name of the controller corresponding to our project model will be called projects. So this is the this is convention. So we had a look in our slide for convention over configuration. So what this is that Rails does a lot of things by convention for you, so that you don't have to write those things on your own. For example, we have a project model, and the corresponding table for the model will be called projects, and the corresponding controller for our model project will also be called projects controller. So Rails assumes a lot of defaults for you, and you do not have to write code for it. However, you can override these defaults. So for example, if I wanted my model to have a different table name other than my projects table, I could have done something like set table name and ABC, whatever. It doesn't matter. But so this is by convention, it has picked up projects, but no, I don't want the convention thing. I want to override it. I want to configure it myself, so I can specify and configure it. So if you notice, we did not need to we didn't write the name of the table here. It was automatically picked by convention. All right. So we were generating a controller. So how do we do it? It is Rails G controller projects and name of the methods that the controller will have. So let us say an index, new, and show. I'll tell you what these are. All right, it's generated a lot of files. We'll see what other files it has generated. So it has generated a projects controller, which derives from your application controller. It has created 3 methods, and in the views folder, it has created another folder called projects. And in this projects folder, we have 3 views called index.html, new.html.erb, and show.html.erb. There's another thing that we need to do is open our routes file, config. The routes file resides in our config folder, and what it has added 3 routes. So what it will do is it will match a get request to the project's index, and a get request to project's new, another get request to project's. So we'll see what happens now. Okay. So let us type in our URL. Oh, I didn't start the server. I need to start the server. So our server has started, and let's see what is this. What would this URL do? Projects. So what it has given us, no routes matches projects. So what I need to do is I need to add a route here called resources project. Let's see now. Okay, so we have an error. This is a pretty common error in a Windows system. So what you need to do for this is you need to add a gem to your gem file. So you open your gem file, and the name of the gem is just a second. I'll tell you the name of the gem that you need to add to fix this. Now, just below your coffee rails gem, you need to add another gem called coffee script source, and the version is going to be 1.8.0. So what I'll do is I'll kill my server. I'll just do a bundle update coffee script source, and it will update my gem. Okay, meanwhile this is installing. I'll take your questions. I have a question from Ajay Sharma. What does these files contain? A basic level code to initiate new projects, or just blank files? So I'm not sure which what is it that you're referring to now, but your model will contain a blank model, whatever what the output of your generate model command is a blank model. The output of your Rails G controller command is a bare minimum controller with the actions that you've specified and views for them, and these views will contain just placeholder code. Another question from Ajay is, which editor am I using? I'm using Sublime Text. If you are on Mac, you can use TextMate. Other than this, there is a specific Ruby editor called RubyMine, which is very good, but Sublime Text is pretty good as well. I also have a question from Vinod. Does it also create a store by default? This is what we had in our index.html.erb. So let me show you what has happened. Our browser sent a request to localhost 3000. This is the default URL on which your application will run in development environment. So it has sent a URL to localhost 3000/projects. So this request landed in our routes file. Now what our routes file did is, with this line, what this line did is it created 5 routes. So I'll show you what routes look like. Windows is really tough. I don't know. Anyway, so what this single line did is, and what I'm doing now is running the rake routes command. What this does is it lists all the routes in our file, in our application. So we'll see whatever this resources project line has produced. This has produced seven routes. So as you can see here, so what happens is when my URL looks like this /projects, and the HTTP verb is get. So if I send a get request, if the browser sends a get request to /projects, which is the case here, /projects, it was just /projects. what this will do is, what is the controller and the action? It is the project's controller and index action. Had my request been slash project and a post request, it would have landed in project's controller create action. Had my request been project slash new, it would have landed, and a get request, it would have landed in projects new. The controller would be projects and action will be new, so on. So this request of mine, so the router has decided that it will go to the, your slash projects request will go to the projects controller and the index action. So this is our projects controller and the index action there. Now what, so this is an empty action as of now. This action could have contained code to fetch all projects, but there is no code as of now because we haven't created any project as such. And what this will do is, by default, by convention, it will render the index.html template in the projects folder in the view folder of your app folder. So this index will run whatever the code is, and this will be there available in our, and this file will be rendered. So this is what it has rendered, projects index, and this is the location. Now let us add some model code to it. Okay, so let us have a look at our projects controller, and let us say we'll collect. So what we'll do is, what we have done is we have collected all the projects. So project.all is a call to the method, is a call to the model. This project is a model, and all is the method defined on it by default. So it will fetch all the projects from the database, and it will assign this project to our variable. Now this variable, or any other variable that we define here, any other instance variable that we define here, gets passed on to index.html. There is no project, there will be no data in it right now, so we can't do anything with it. But let me show you if this project is an empty array. So what these does is, so let us see the view file. So index, the name of this file is index.html.erb. Now this HTML stands for, obviously it stands for that it is an HTML file. This ERB stands for the fact that it has embedded Ruby code. So this embedded Ruby code will be in, under these, angular brace and a percentile, and end with again a percentage and an angular brace. So I could have written any HTML here. Let us say project listing, and we are displaying if the project is empty or not. So let's see. Oh, I didn't start my server again. It's like, all right. So let us see what this did. Oh, I did not convert it to an array. Let us convert it to an array. It looks like I'm using the wrong method. Let's check the length. Okay, so it was given a length of 0, so there are no records as of now. So let us have some code, and let us create a project. So for this I need two actions. One is new. In this new action, we will instantiate a new project, and we will have another action called create, which will save this. Now a few more things that we will have here is, okay, so what we'll do is we'll define a method called project params, which will whitelist all the parameters that are allowed. That can be updated via a post request. So project and permit name. So only a name can be permitted. And in our create, what we'll do is project and project.new. So if you notice, the difference between new and create is that it will have the params that a user has filled. I'll show you what this means is. Project params, and then we'll save this project. If it gets saved, we'll redirect to the index page with a notice that project has been saved successfully. All right. Otherwise, we'll render the new template. We'll just see what this code means. So what has happened here is we have a new method corresponding to our new template, new projects new. Again, this was the default view generated, and we'll quickly write some code in here. So we have an h1 tag which says new project, and let us say I have form for. These are this form for is a helper given by Rails, and it creates a form for us automatically. We don't have to explicitly write anything. It will also see the state of the project object in it and create the form with the relevant URL and relevant HTTP verb. What will this form contain? This form will contain an input field for our name of a project. All right, so we have a form for, let's just give some divs and give it a class called field. In this div we will have a label and a text field for name. We'll shortly see what is the code that what is it that I'm trying to do with this code. Then we will create a submit button. Okay, so let's see what this does. Okay, so let's go to project/new. Okay, so this is the code that I've written. So what happens is my URL now is project/new. So my router has decided that it will go to the project's controller and new action. So what did this new action do? It the MVC part of it, what it would do is we interacted with your model, which is project. It created a new instance of it and passed it on to our view. Now my view that will be created by default, that will be used for this action by default, is new. So new.html. Now here in our new.html we had a header, for new project. We created a form for the object that was received from the controller, that is @project, and we created a field for name, and we created a submit button. Now this form for what it does is it creates a form helper. It is a helper which creates a form and that gets submitted to our create action. So when your form gets submitted to a create action, it lands on the router. Router sees that it is a post request and the URL is /projects. It sends the request with the parameters to our create method. What it does is it again creates a new object, this time with the parameters that we have sent from the form. And this method again is defined here, which says that only permit name. So user can only input name, nothing else. That will be saved. So you can save this project with the save command, and if it gets saved, so the save will return a true or false. So if this gets saved, we will redirect to the project's path. Now this project's path is nothing but the index action, and with a notice that the project has been saved. If there was some problem, some validation errors in it, it will render the new template. So it will land here and it will render the new template. And let's see this in action. So let us see if the name of my project is first project. Created. It landed here. So what did we have in our index was the length of the projects. Okay, so let us open our index and list our projects. We were just displaying the length. If you notice earlier it was 0, now it is 1. That means our record got saved and we are displaying the length. So let me quickly write some code for displaying the projects. I'm just creating a table to display. So what I'll do is I'll iterate over all the projects. Projects dot each is an iterator in Ruby, and I'll display the name. I'll also display some links here. Let us just display one link. Let me add a TRTD. All right, another link. Just one link as of now for our show page. Link to project, link to the show action, and so we'll see the output in a minute. All right, so let's see. Okay, spelling mistake. Okay, so this is our project listing. Again, we can go to new, add another project. Okay, this is displayed. So this is our basic, basics of MVC using. We're creating a project. The model is handling the part where we are, instantiating a new object, where we are fetching new objects. The controller is actually making, sending a request out to the model to fetch all the objects and then passing it on to the view. The view is then displaying, putting some CSS on it or iterating over them and displaying all its attributes. So that is MVC for you. Now what I told you that your model will have some, can have rules and validations. So let us add a validation. So what I want to say is that I want my name to be always present. A form cannot submit without a name. Let me just, I haven't displayed the errors. Let's try to go to display the errors in my new template. So let me just say if project dot errors dot any, if there are any errors here, what will this do is create a div. ID is error explanation, and what I'll do is I'll iterate over the errors. Project dot errors dot full messages, message. What I'm essentially doing is I'm iterating over the project's errors and the messages and taking the message in a variable message and will call a method over it, or rather display it. That is it. Let me just put this in a UL. li. All right. Let's see now. So we have added a rule in a project. So as I told you, all the rules part of how of saving the data, retrieving it, deleting it, updating it will be in the model. So this is the first rule that I have entered in my model, which is the project, which says that validates name. So I've added a validation on my name attribute, which says that it has to be present. So, and what I've also done is I have added some logic to display any errors. So let us say this is my form for creating a new project. I create a project. So I missed. Let's just try to print the errors first and see if there are any. Okay, there are errors. So let us just remove. Let's just remove this div for now. Probably this is not displaying anything. Let us see why this is not displaying anything. Let's try and print my name here. Let's see if this gets printed. Basically, I'm just debugging why is it not displaying the error to me. Okay, it is coming here. Let me remove the ULLI as well. Let's print the Shreya here. Okay, it is not coming here. Oops, I missed the each iterator. Alright, this will work now. So let's try to create a new project. And let us remove this without any name. And it says name can't be blank. So we have added a rule to our project which says that name can't be blank. And by the principles of our MVC, it is put in our model, not anywhere else. We can add multiple rules here. Things like checking the format of the email, checking uniqueness for a name, that we want every project to have a unique name, stuff like that. Guys, do keep asking me any questions. If you guys have any questions, keep asking me. Alright, so what I'll now quickly do is, so whatever I've done, there is a shortcut for all this. I just implemented all this so that I can show it to you. But the shortcut for all this is Rails, G, scaffold. What I'm trying to do is now create a ticket. So it will create a model, a view, and a controller, and the necessary routes. Missed a few things. So ticket will have a title and a description, which will be text. So let's see what this does. I'm sorry I'm running over time. I think I started late. So do let me know if you guys are in a rush. Okay, so it is, done, added a lot of code. Let's see what it has done. So it has added a model. Let me just plug in my charger. Just a second, guys. All right. So let's see what it has done. So it has added a model called ticket, a controller with all our actions. It has also added a folder for all our actions as well, folder for tickets and all the views as well. So and it has also generated a migration. Let me just, for creating tickets, let me just quickly migrate. But before this, what I'll do is I'll associate this with a project. So there's something called references. What it does is it will add a foreign key of project ID here. So the keyword is references, like this. Now I'm going to migrate. I'm going to quickly add my associations. So what this will do is ticket belongs to a project. This is for the association. And guys, I'm going to mute for a minute. Just a second. All right. This belongs to a project. Project has many tickets. So, you know, all this business level logic we are going to write in a model. So, has many tickets. One thing that our controller is missing is tickets controller. Okay, it has everything actually. So let's create a ticket. As we notice, the URL will be /ticket. I didn't start my server again. All right. So one thing that I need also to show you is nested routes. So what I'll do is I'll nest this tickets in my project so that my foreign key is going to exist. That is, a ticket object will have a foreign key reference to the project. So my routes will reflect that as well. So my routes will look something like project /1 will be the ID of the project /tickets /new. Okay, I need to fix a few things here. So let's just fix. Okay, so what I need to fix here? Nothing. Edit. First, let's fix in. Okay, so there is nothing called tickets path. There is project underscore tickets path, and we will have a project here. Also, we need to add a function that will try to find the project. So before action is something that that runs before any action that we define it for. So let us say this will we set a function called setTicket, and it will run before my new create edit, actually all of them. Now we need to define this def set project set it project go to project. So this again, guys, is the model. We are invoking the model to find the project which is provided in our params. So these are the params. The project ID will, this one will appear in the params project ID. Wrong notation, sorry. Again, we will have to fix this, fix a route. Let's fix all our routes in one go. There is no route here. One thing that we need to change is this. Okay. So what this does is it sends the value for project ID rather than just sending the parameters for ticket. It will send the project ID as well. All right, there we go. So a lot of issues there, but yeah, we have our form, and let us say we have we are creating a ticket for this particular project of ours, and we have a description. We create a ticket. Again, we need to fix our URLs. Okay, so this again is nested under project. So let us fix the URL. So we will forward it to project, and so this will go to the project show page, and let us now display the tickets in our project show page. So project.tickets. We created the association, that's why this method is available to us. Dot each do we collect it in a variable called ticket. Guys, do let me know if you are not getting any of this. Let's just display the ticket title, and we'll also display the in a paragraph. Ideally, this should go in a some ULLI, but we'll put this in a paragraph and the name of the project. Project.name. So let's see. Okay, we need to find the project here in our projects controller. So what do we need to do? So this this style of programming, you reproduce the error, and so I'm deliberately trying to do this so that you can see the errors and get to know what is it that is missing, and by defining the error, you will get to know exactly what line will do what. So we have invoked the project model and invoked the find method on it, and we are trying to find the project which is supplied in the params ID, and we are assigning it to the project variable. There we go. So this is my project, and it has displayed the project to me. Now let me just let us try to attach the ticket to it. All right. I'll open the tickets controller. So one thing that I need to do here is let's check the development logs. Okay, this is not for this project. Let me open the log and show to you what is that is happening. So there is a folder called logs available to us. All right, so let me empty it once so that you can see. So let me try to create a new ticket for you. All right. So it landed us on the project show page. So let's see what happened. The URL that the URL that we went for is project/1 tickets new. So the router decided that it will land on the tickets controller new action, and the parameter was available to us was the project ID. So we came to the tickets controller. What it did was it landed on the new action. It initialized a new ticket. It invoked the model new, and it rendered the new template. What this did was it did display your your title, and it rendered another file called form. So ticket/form. This is the form. What it did was it took in the project ID and the ticket. It tried to display any errors. If there were, we haven't added any validation, so no errors. It had two fields for title and description and a submit button. So this form for created is a helper which will create a URL and which will point to our create action. So what create did was it created a new ticket here, and if the ticket got saved, it redirected to our project show page. So since it redirected to the first project page, we got to know that this particular ticket was attached to our first project. So these are two examples of how MVC works. So we created a project. The router, interpreted our URL for us, and it landed us to the project controller. The controller then, interacted with the model. It either fetched the data or, saved it or something, and then it performed various actions on it. Similarly for the tickets. Now our ticket is associated to a project, and we saw how we nested routes for that. So the approach that I tried to do with you is, to show to you is to produce an error and then show what exactly is the line of code that that would resolve that error, so that you get to know exactly what each line will help you do. So this is the basics of MVC. Guys, do let me know if you have any questions. So we saw what is convention over configuration. By convention, naming a table after a model, naming the controller name, the views, everything, that is by convention. In case we want to override it, we can, explicitly specify and override anything. So this makes writing your code a lot simpler. You have to write lesser code because by convention it picks up a lot of things on its own. Alright, so we saw MVC and what are its benefits. It is separation of concern. Model deals with separate things, controller deals with separate, view deals with separate things. Parallel development by separate teams, since the code is organized. Change is accommodated, it is organized and maintained. It will support multiple views. So we had a demo. I'm open for questions. Alright guys, hope you got a comprehensive view of what is MVC, and hope this will help you get started with coding in Rails. Thank you.